Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Friday, everybody. Today we are going to take a look at Venus moving into a square with Pluto, which is happening over the weekend. And so, even though today the Sun is opposing Neptune, and that's a big transit, we did look at that yesterday. So, if you're looking for some coverage of that particular transit, make sure you look at yesterday's video where we talked about that one, which is perfecting today. But we want to make sure that we take a look at Venus-Pluto, which is coming over the weekend. So, I saved this one for last this week. A big transit for a number of reasons. Obviously, there's going to be all of the normal Venus-Pluto stuff. We're going to kind of refresh ourselves on the Venus-Pluto combination today. But then we're going to look at three different signatures that make this particular square quite powerful, some other context that is important to keep in mind. So that will be our agenda for today. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 70,000 subscribers. It's been a goal that we've had since I don't know, I think it's about July or so. We've doubled our subscriber average per month since then. It's been a great showing of support. We really appreciate it when you help us by subscribing, which is free. It just helps the channel to grow and helps our community and business to grow. So we really do appreciate that. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. The Nightlight Astrology School begins its next program, the one-year course in ancient Hellenistic astrology, on November 16th. So at the end of today's video, there is an additional informational video tagged onto the end if you want to learn more about the program. The early bird sale is on the first year course page right now, all the way up until October 15th. You can save significantly on the cost of the course, whether you're doing a one-time payment up front for the course, you save significantly that way. Or if you're doing 12 monthly payment plan, 12 monthly installments through the payment plan, those are on sale at the bottom of the first year course page. We also have need-based tuition assistance. So be sure that if you are someone who needs a little help to make this program happen because you're on a fixed or limited income, we try to make sure nobody's priced out of studying something sacred. We believe that's important. We've been doing this for a long time. So if you're someone who could use a little help, click on the Apply Now button. We do have limited number of tuition assistance spots available for people, and you get to pick your own tier within a sliding scale of what your monthly tuition is. So that's available there for people who might need a little help. Glad to offer that. And then the other thing to check out is, in case you missed last night's talk, we did Venus through the 12 signs, looking at the karma of Venus in your birth chart by sign placement. You can still pick that up. You can get the recording if you missed the live talk. We always give the recordings if you can't make it live. So check those things out. And again, make sure that you stick around after today's talk is over to learn all about the first year program in Hellenistic astrology that begins November 16th. It's a really great signature to study under, with Pluto re-entering Aquarius right about the time we start that class. A great election for studying astrology. All right, now let's turn our attention to the real-time clock, where we are going to take a look at the application of Venus to Pluto. So today, Friday, September 20th, we can see that Venus is within about 3 degrees of squaring Pluto from Libra to Capricorn. This is interesting because every Venus-Pluto conjunction, square, or opposition tends to be a very potent astrological transit. Most people really notice these periods. But it's also significant for a variety of other reasons. One of them that I'm not even really talking about today is the fact that this is the last time these two planets will square while Pluto's in Capricorn. They've been doing so every time Venus has gone through Libra since Pluto was in Capricorn. They've done so. So it's a shift in terms of just that dynamic between Venus in Libra and Pluto in Capricorn. That's not going to be around for, hundreds of years. So it is kind of the last moment to even just study or experience that particular archetypal combination. But there are some other things that we're going to look at today that make this square very potent. Before we do that, let's just refresh. So Saturday, they come to within a degree. Sunday, they are within about almost perfect. And then by Monday morning, the aspect will have perfected and Venus will have crossed into the sign of Scorpio. So we're looking at between now and Sunday evening, we have the perfection of this aspect. So if you give it about a 3-degree range, that gives us from Friday, September 20th, all the way through September 22nd, Sunday, when the two planets actually square. So 20th through the 22nd is the window that I would say is probably most powerful. You get a little bit of the afterglow on Monday as Venus moves into Scorpio, for sure, because there are definitely some affinities between Pluto and the sign of Scorpio, and which is why modern astrologers have assigned Pluto a ruler of Scorpio. I don't personally use outer planets as rulers, but that's a different conversation. Anyhow, let us now talk. We're going to just refresh on the actual meaning of Venus-Pluto dynamics. Like what can we expect from this astrological combination? Most of you are fully aware of the fact that one of the key phrases for Venus-Pluto is transformation in relationships. We think of Pluto as the god of transformation. Transformation is actually a property of almost all planetary dynamics because the world is constantly changing. Everything is impermanent, everything's in flux, everything's moving, and we have change as a constant. So transformation is kind of a throwaway word. But when we think about Pluto, that word means something else. When we think about Pluto, we think about that powerful, cathartic, eruptive, volcanic emergence of unconscious material that often comes up in powerful and sometimes rather ominous or heavy or even dark ways, but it serves to transform. And usually there is a sense of death and purgation, a cleansing and a regeneration that comes with Pluto. I mean, Pluto is very purgative. There's a sense of being cleansed of something toxic or of getting to see things that have been maybe somewhat malignant and existing behind or beneath the surface or the veneer. And so it's a powerful agent of transformation. All planets are transformative. Pluto does so in ways that are often bring up the idea of like a healing crisis or a major emotional catharsis or the sudden eruptive force of unconscious material, primal, but also creative in nature. So when you combine that with Venus, the goddess of love, and the goddess that is associated with relationships, those relationships are often, we think of romantic with Venus, but it could be sisters, it could be friends, it could be women. Those are all things Venus signifies, friends in general, as well as any other kind of personal relationship, depending on where Venus, and in this case, the sign of Libra, falls in your birth chart. That area of life and the relationships in that area of life indicated by the topics of the house will be made active. So when we kind of put all of that together, you have one of the easiest interpretations becomes transformation in relationships, with everybody sort of knowing that it's a Plutonian kind of transformation, and that the relationships could be romantic or could be a little bit broader than that. So what can you expect between now and Sunday? You could expect some pretty big shifts in relationships. I like the word shift because it implies that some relationships are going to grow and evolve. And they're going to evolve through meeting unconscious material, but also through assimilating, integrating, compromising, finding peaceful resolutions. Venus in Libra is, of course, a diplomat and someone who cares a great deal about things like fairness. We could characterize Venus in Libra that way. So, how do we fairly deal with, or how do we deal with the deep and transformative force of Pluto in a way that is equitable, fair, compromising, considerate, tactful? Those are things that frankly could be very nice. I mean, because it's not all the time when powerful forces erupt from the unconscious realm that we don't just react. And that's why there can be this sense of the bridges that are burned in relationships, or the structures that are decimated, somehow. And then from the ashes, the phoenix will rise, of course, but that sounds pretty heavy. I like Venus in Libra's ability to negotiate the powerful release of Plutonian energy this weekend with a kind of sensitivity, with a sensibility that says, well, look, how can we get through this or navigate this release of energy in a way that is thoughtful? Venus in Libra has that kind of, she's like an architect that knows the lines and angles of the, has it on a layout. She lay it out on the table and look at it. She has that ability to be a little objective while also very considerate and sensitive, harmonious. So harmonious and a harmonious ability to navigate upheaval or catharsis. That is one really beautiful, indication potentially of Venus and Pluto. So the other thing that we could say about Venus and Pluto is that Venus and Pluto often brings Venus into contact with Plutonian things, just because sometimes Venus, whatever Venus comes in, when Venus gets into contact with Neptune, it's like you get a Venusian experience that's Neptunian on top of it. Or when Venus comes into contact with Uranus, you get a Venus that is seeing the world and experiencing it through the lens of Uranus. So Venus and Pluto get together, and the two inflect upon one another mutually, and you get things like an interest in subterranean, erotic, taboo, dark, and potentially repressed or suppressed material around things like sexuality, or things like intimacy. Art and beauty take on a darker or more subterranean quality. And it's important to recognize that Venus has a lot of different tastes and interests, and we can find beauty in dark things. Venus-Pluto is like one of the greatest reminders that there's a lot of very dark things that are actually tremendously beautiful if we can sit in and reflect and observe and appreciate. I know my co-host from Monthly Overviews, Alexandra, you can find her on Instagram at 9 Lives Astrology. She does these things on Instagram where she patches together some of the people who have Venus, Pluto, the artists, and just kind of demonstrates the music, the painting that is expressing the Venus, Pluto archetype in the native's birth chart. So Venus, Pluto will put us in touch with those things that are often repressed, that we say, oh, it's not appropriate to find sadness to be beautiful, or melancholy to be beautiful. It's not appropriate to think of things that are dark or edgy, or even a little ominous. To find some sense of their beauty is twisted. Not that probably everyone listening to this doesn't think that way, but a lot of people do. Certainly, I remember growing up in the Protestant church, like there's not a lot of adults that I grew up with who are like the elders in the church community who really would have understood like Depeche Mode, or like The Cure. Very Venus-Pluto expressions in a way, The other thing is that sometimes relationships need to go through, there are people need to reveal themselves. There's this recurring theme in human life and relationship where, oh, you think you know me, and you start feeling resentful, because someone that you're in a relationship with, or maybe multiple people, treat you like they know everything there is to know about you. And the soul is so offended by that, right? The soul is an endless mystery even unto itself. And so the soul will be compelled in certain moments to rupture the fabric of other people's comfortable perceptions of us. And it will often do so by carrying dark or complicated themes into the light and display them, like the peacock tail, and say, this is a beautiful part of me that you didn't see, motherfuckers. Yeah, sorry, kids. Don't repeat those words. But yeah, it's like, you don't know me. Yeah, well, let me show you my dark cloak of beauty. Oh my God. So, yeah, I remember a couple of summers ago, we were at a conference and there was a masked ball, and I was with Ashley, and there was a masked ball, and Ashley got me this beautiful mask, and I wore it with like kind of like a suit. Anyway, and it was like a beast mask from Beauty and the Beast, but like super beautiful and ornate. Anyway, I was like telling Ashley beforehand that I was nervous to wear it for the girls, my girls, because I didn't want them to be afraid of me. And I just felt scary, And she was like, my wife made this great point, and it was funny because there was a Venus-Pluto dynamic going on. I want to say like a day before or the day after this mass ball, so it was like very much in the air. And she was like, "No, like it's they know who you are. They're going to be so enchanted, and they're going to find you this like dark beast version of Daddy who looks really nice with his suit and everything. They're going to find you to be very handsome and attractive." And it's good for them to know that like you're safe, but there's also this side of you. And I think it's good for our girls to know that. And I was like, okay. And Ashley was like, I kind of like it too. I was so stoked. I was like, yeah, let's go. So I wore the beast mask, and like, I don't know, it was really cool. I'm not like, for me, that was difficult because I didn't want to give the appearance of being someone who was trying to be scary or edgy, because I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. But instead, the complete polar opposite thing happened, which was that people found it really enchanting and fun. And so did my girls. And, you know, and Ashley was like flirting with me the whole night. It was great. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is a way in which we all need to tap into the beast. And the beauty in the beast motif is very Venus-Pluto. The transformation of beauty and the kind of horrible like claws of nature, and the close proximity to things that are sweet and beautiful and delicate. Not to say that the feminine is only delicate, right? But you get what I mean, where there's like, think about the juxtaposition of the characters of Beauty and the Beast in the story. And what we're actually trying to do is draw those archetypes together, that there's something similar about them. And Venus-Pluto will ask us to like tap into that. So, so yeah, get your beast mask on. You know what I mean? Whatever that means for you. Okay, so the other thing that I would say is important is that sometimes revelations occur in love and relationships with Venus-Pluto. They're not easy. This transit does sometimes coincide with things like betrayal, or the revelation of transgressions in love and relationships. There's a way in which we have to make room for or accommodate darkness in each other if we are going to walk together in any kind of relationship for any significant amount of time. That's a Venus-Pluto dynamic. It's not easy, but I mean, how can we grow if we can't allow for, forgive, understand each other's fallibility? That's a Venus-Pluto dynamic. On the other hand, sometimes these revelations show us who someone really is, and there's just no going back, and the relationship has to end. It has to be replaced, or maybe seriously revised in some way. So anyway, these are a few of the significations that come to my mind with Venus squaring Pluto. And there are 3 things to watch for that I want to point out regarding the astrology surrounding the square. And I'm going to pull my chart back up to illustrate here. Let me get it set up. Okay, so, all right, here we are. So first things first, we have Venus squaring Pluto. Oh, the big arrow's out. Just got excited about the conversation. Okay, so Venus square Pluto. The first thing to watch for, in my opinion, is that Venus will immediately change signs. This is significant because this Venus-Pluto dynamic, although it is powerful on its own, is immediately followed by a journey that Venus is going to take through the sign of Scorpio, and that will happen from September 23rd all the way until about October 18th, when Venus goes into Sagittarius. So that dynamic is, we're getting like a little less than a month of Venus and Scorpio directly following the Venus-Pluto dynamic. The reason I think this is significant is that it suggests that whatever this encounter is, it has some pretty deep ramifications. Venus entering that deep, fixed, watery sign of Mars suggests that this confrontation leads to a bit of a tumultuous period for Venus, that relationships, that whatever this contact with Pluto is indicating, that it immediately draws us into a deeper and more prolonged meditation on this transformation because Venus in Scorpio has many things in common with Venus square Pluto. So it's as though this is a flashpoint, and then immediately it's drawing us into like a month-long meditation on ongoing changes, depths, and the subterranean qualities of love and relationships. So it's not just a Venus-Pluto square, right? It is a Venus-Pluto square followed by this deep, long, fixed journey of Venus through Scorpio. So that should give us a little bit more to think about. It is followed by a solar eclipse in Libra. So that square between the two planets happening now is followed within 2 weeks by a solar eclipse in Venus's sign while Venus is in Scorpio. So again, the Venus-Pluto square is showing itself to be connected to a solar eclipse in Venus's sign following closely after, while Venus continues through a sign in Scorpio that mirrors much of the Venus-Pluto dynamic. One way of looking at that, especially with solar eclipses that often indicate powerful new beginnings, is that the encounter between Venus and Pluto is going to point us in the direction of the need for new contracts in relationships that are more equitable, that are that represent a fair and equal distribution of responsibility or labor or care, that are equitable. And or it can also indicate that this Venus-Pluto square, which could destroy some relationships or deeply challenge them, will be followed by the need to establish new relationships, or at the very least, a completely new way of doing an existing relationship. I think those are some of the safest bets with respect to the meaning of the solar eclipse in Venus's sign, Venus in Scorpio, shortly after a Venus-Pluto square. And then finally, Venus herself, as the ruler of the solar eclipse, is coming at the time of the solar eclipse right into something of a grand water trine. Now, the grand water trine isn't perfect. We'll have Venus hitting Saturn and then Venus hitting Mars, while Mars is just separating from a trine to Saturn. But they're all very closely connected around the time of the solar eclipse in Libra, Venus's sign, while Venus is so charged up in Scorpio. So this Venus-Pluto encounter is suggesting a period of ongoing tumultuousness around relationships and their transformation, their meaningful shift to include or access some of those deeper, more subterranean themes is promised not only by everything happening around Venus and Pluto and the eclipse and Venus going into Scorpio, but by the fact that we see Venus moving into this grand water trine configuration with a fallen Mars, with a Saturn in Pisces. This suggests a very deep level of emotionality and of vulnerable places that we're trying to tap into, and we're trying to do so without being coercive or without, with an appropriate amount of emotional vulnerability, but not veering into something like coerciveness, emotional manipulation, codependency, and so forth. It is as though this Venus-Pluto square is triggering a very deep and ongoing period of emotional reflection and emotional work. So some pretty substantive stuff. It's, if it were just Libra, we might think about the sort of contractual, intellectual, abstract, and rational level of our relationships, how we conceptualize them, how we believe they work, and what we sort of agree to in principle within those relationships is reflected by Libra. When you get all of that enmeshed within a grand water trine with these particular planets, it's not so easy to be objective. There's going to be things that draw us into less objective places, less rational places. Doesn't mean irrational is bad either, but there's a felt level, an instinctual level, an emotional level of this exploration that is implied by this dynamic following Venus square Pluto, following the eclipse in Venus's sign of Libra, and so forth. So just a few things there. I hope that this was useful. Stick around after I sign off. There is an informational video. It's about 10 minutes long. It is about the upcoming program. So if you want to come study with us, we start November 16th. There is need-based tuition. If you need to make your own price within your fixed budget, we understand people are hurting. People are in different places. People have different fixed incomes. We don't want people to live outside their means in order to take a class that allows you to grow spiritually, or maybe even allows you to develop a skill like astrology for other people. So Please feel free to utilize that. The sale on the course is also available till October 15th. So any questions about what you hear in the informational video after I sign off, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. Hope to see some of you in classes soon. Have a great day, everybody, and a great weekend. Bye. Hey, everyone. I'm glad that you're sticking around to hear more about the Year 1 program that's coming up. The program starts on November 16th of this fall, and I am here today to tell you all that the program includes and why I think you really like it if you're thinking about studying astrology. So, a few practical details about the course as well. The class begins November 16th, as I mentioned, but it takes place on Saturdays from 12 to about 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's 11 to 2 Central, and typically classes are about 2 hours long. Sometimes they run over with Q&A and discussion, but you can always plan for about 2 hours and you won't miss any of the actual lecture content for the day. You may have to duck out a little early if Q&A or discussion is extending. Sometimes it does, which is why we say between 2 and 3 hours, but typically it's around 2. All of the classes are recorded, so if you can't attend live, you are more than welcome to watch the recordings at your own pace and on your own time. You have lifetime access to the recordings, and everything is housed on a student website. I want to actually give you a just a little preview of what that student website looks like. So I am going to open up my own version of Thinkific, which is the platform that we use. So here's are some of my courses. These are all the Nightlight courses I teach. You can see on the page. But I'm going to tune into, let's go to Nightlight 28, which is the section that began in June of 2024. So here you're going to see that we have orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar. Everything that you need to know how to access the course is there, and you'll have a version of this in your own panel that you get set up with when you enroll. And then our lessons are laid out. So lesson 1, we have the video, the audio, the slides, the transcript. We have the Q&A box transcript so you can see what people were saying in the chat box during class. We have flashcards. We have a workbook. We have planet and sign glyph flashcards. We have bonus material, videos that we like from YouTube that we link you to. Say, check this video out, check that video out. They go along with some of the things we talked about in class. So every lesson has material for you to go as far as you want with, but the main thing is the video, audio, slides, transcript, etc. are all listed there so that you can download and watch it on your own time if you can't attend live. Again, the live classes do happen on Saturdays for this cohort, starting November 16th. That is our first day of class. And then going forward, it always meets on Saturdays, and we give you the class schedule to map out. And the breaks that we have, the study sessions that we have, everything's mapped out on the class calendar for you. So those are just a few practical details that, just to kind of start us off with. So I'm going to take you over to the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And I'm going to share with you some information about the program and sort of walk you through what it includes and what you can expect. So it is an almost year-long program. We typically finish between 10 and 11 months out of the year. It can depend a little bit on some of my teaching and scheduling, because sometimes I teach at conferences and it may delay some of our modules by a week or something like that. But it's typically around 10 to 11 months that the program lasts. So we call it our first year program. At Nightlight, we have a program for absolute beginners. You may want to check that out if you are like brand spanking new. That would be 8 to 10 hours of content that's really meant to set you up for the first year course. We sort of assume that if you're coming into the first year program, you already know a little bit about astrology. For example, you have some familiarity with the signs, planets, and houses. Maybe you know what aspects are, but you want to learn more about what they are. But if you are really at the very total entry level space, then try Astrology for Beginners. And when you take that, you could do that right away and then join the first year course in November, and you'd be perfectly set up for it. But anyhow, in this program, over the course of about a year, we work through 30 lessons that I lead. And those lessons are all 2 to 3 hours each, including lecture, a little break, and a Q&A portion where we open up for people to come on mic and camera and ask questions and have an interactive discussion about the material for the day. The program is broken into modules that cover a variety of topics in ancient Hellenistic astrology. That is the earliest era of horoscopic astrology. And so, if you don't know a lot about the different schools of astrology, Hellenistic astrology is going to be the kind of astrology that you see a lot of astrologers practicing nowadays. It's become more popular in the last 30 years or so. And that is due to the fact that a lot of ancient texts with some of the original techniques of horoscopic astrologers were recently translated into the English language, and it's created this renaissance in terms of the use of ancient approaches to astrology. I have a background in modern psychological, archetypal, and evolutionary astrology. And so, of course, I bring those things to the table. But the course is primarily focused on the excavation of ancient techniques and the spiritual philosophy that ancient astrologers also espoused. The closest thing that I can tell you to what that looks like is, ask this question: do you resonate with the philosophy that you hear me take on my YouTube channel? If so, then you're going to love this course in terms of its philosophical and spiritual approach, because the spiritual approach to astrology that I teach is really at the heart of the program. And that's a big part of my life. I approach astrology from a spiritual standpoint. It doesn't belong to one religion or one particular school of thought, but you will hear me talking about things like the soul, the belief in the transmigration of the soul. You'll hear me talk about the need to be soul-centered in our client approach to counseling in astrology. You'll hear me have an appreciation for psychological dimensions of astrology, but also ancient astrology is really very, very good at developing your predictive capacity. We talk about what kinds of predictions are appropriate, how to make appropriate predictions, how to be the right kind of astrologer for our clients without inducing any fear. So there's a lot of care that goes into the development of this craft. But ancient astrology is really amazing when it comes to honing your predictive abilities. And then what you'll find is in this program, there's also a pretty significant emphasis on the psychological dimensions and client care. Anyhow, we go into the roots of ancient Hellenistic astrology and its techniques in this program, and the 30 classes are broken into modules. We work through the history and philosophy. We work through planets, houses, signs, aspects, essential and accidental dignities. And then we get into approaches to the delineation of natal charts. And then at the end of the program, almost a third of the program is dedicated to live client readings, where you're going to see me meet with a person and apply what we've been studying for an hour-long reading. We take a break, we come back, and then we workshop. How did I do that? Why did I make these choices? How did I handle this or that came up in the reading? And it becomes easily the favorite part for most students of the entire program, because by that point, you've got so much theory that you're really ready to see it put into action. We alternate those live client practice sessions with hands-on practice, where students get to bring chart questions into class that we work on. And that's also something that most people really love. A lot of people will look at the curriculum and say, well, I already know planets, houses, and signs and aspects and dignities. But not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology, because the approach that ancient astrologers had to these topics is vastly different from the approach that modern astrologers take. So you will be, in a sense, relearning basic things in a brand new way. And I think a much more enriching, deep, and philosophically clear way. It's really nice to know the why behind things. This program and Hellenistic astrology in general is very good at helping you understand the why behind everything that we do. Also, it's really important to participate when you study astrology in a living lineage. So one of the reasons I don't let people jump ahead to my second or third year programs is because I want you to be entrained to a lineage, a particular way of doing things that comes from an astrologer who has a very living, busy, active practice and who has had teachers themselves. I think that's important for astrological learning. That's the model that my own learning take, and so that's what I really want students to take away from my programs. Anyhow, so all of that aside, the second year program focuses, after we build our understanding of the basic delineation techniques of birth charts, in year 2, we move into timing techniques, which is all about when the karma of a birth chart is going to be active and expressing itself throughout the course of a lifetime. That's year 2. Year 3 focuses on the development of counseling skills at a much deeper level. And then we also have a 1-year horary program, which is about the development of a very specific predictive technique that can be a really amazing tool to add to your kit. That is 4 years worth of training training programs that we have. However, I want to mention that many people take our classes just for the sake, purely for the sake of their own personal growth. Taking these programs is very much like being taught how to utilize a technology that for yourself will be deeply useful for the rest of your life, and maybe for close friends or family members around you. Many people come through our programs taking that benefit away and will study through all 4 years of our programs with no intention of being professional. This is their hobby. This is a spiritual tool that will have it will pay dividends over a long period of time. However, many people without the intention to practice come into our courses and discover that they're actually good at it and may end up reading for other people part-time. And then there are students who are deeply, intensely motivated to practice for other people. And it is not that our programs really make those people successful. Our programs contribute to your development, but it really is that some people have a calling to practice professionally. And these programs are designed to give you all the tools you need to develop that confidence and to develop a really coherent set of tools and to entrain yourself to a lineage, which you can also develop your own unique style out of. So those are some of the kinds of people that take our programs, you might say. So the 30 classes on the year are then broken into modules. And in between modules, we have 2 course directors who are present in all of the classes, and they lead breakout tutoring sessions where you can come in and review or ask questions about the module that we've just completed, which is usually anywhere between 2 and 3 classes each. So those breakout study sessions led by our tutors are outside of the 30 classes and very useful. A lot of people like to attend those because they also offer opportunity for community and just lively conversation. We also have 12 online webinar classes led by guest teachers that we host throughout the year. Those are free, and if you can't make them live, they're all uploaded into your student folder. You also have an interactive group forum discussion staffed with tutors who typically respond to questions that you have about the material within 24 hours. So if you can't attend a tutoring session or you just have a random question on a Tuesday night, you can pop it in there and you'll get an answer. We also have a ton of bonus material, optional quizzes, flashcards, tons of supplemental material that is there to help people go as deeply as they want. We have a reading list that is expansive. And that reading list, we don't expect anyone to accomplish. It's more so a resource that we give you saying, here, if you want to know all the things I've read, if you want to know all the things that I love, if you want to know all the things I recommend, here's a master list of everything for each lesson. You could go, PhD level if you wanted to and read thousands and thousands of pages, or you might find that there's just one extra book that looks really interesting and you want to pick it up. But we pride ourselves on making sure you have a ton of resources. You have lifetime access to all the class recordings. You can email our staff or me throughout the year with questions, and my staff will also defer to me in the case that they don't know the answer to a question. So that is what the program includes. It starts November 16th. If you would like to join, at the bottom between now and October 15th, our early bird payments are available. So that saves you some money off the cost of the course. There is a 12-month installment plan that is cheaper than our normal plan, a one-time payment that's significantly cheaper than our normal one-time payment. So you get these little sales that we do until October 15th. We also have need-based tuition assistance. So if you are someone who would like to take this program, but you are on a fixed or tight budget, we have an application there. Click apply now. Just tell us what you need. We give a range. We say between this dollar amount and this dollar amount, what can you spend? And then we set you up with a plan for that tuition number per month. And that is available for anyone. We ask people to apply early because those spots are limited, but we are really accommodating. We try to make sure that nobody's priced out of a spiritual education. Like, this topic should be very accessible for people because I believe that the divine is speaking through the sky, and like anyone should have access to understanding what it's saying, right? So anyway, that is a bit about the program. I hope that this has been useful for you. If there are any questions you have, you can look over the curriculum content on the page, on the year 1 page. There's more information there. Check out the FAQ section for more questions. Email us info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see some of you in class soon. I think this is going to be a really powerful program because it's also starting right as Pluto is moving into Aquarius. And within the year, we're going to have a Uranus-Pluto trine with Uranus in Gemini. These Aries signatures and the connection between Uranus and Pluto make for a very powerful year to advance our understanding of astrology. So it's a great election year for studying. And I hope to see some of you in class soon.